The wind roared across the bridge, cutting through the night like a whisper of something inevitable. Detective Robert Miller stood a few feet away from the man at the edge, his breath curling in the cold air. The city lights stretched behind them, distant and indifferent, while below, the river churned, a dark, silent abyss. The man's hands gripped the railing, his knuckles white, his suit wrinkled like he had worn it for days. His eyes, hollow and unfocused, stared down at the water. Robert took a careful step forward. "Hey, let's talk about this." His voice was calm, practiced. "Whatever's going on, there's another way." The man let out a bitter chuckle, shaking his head. "You wouldn't understand?" Robert exhaled slowly. "Try me." The man turned his head slightly, just enough for Robert to see the exhaustion carved into his features. The look of someone who had already made peace with all of it. "It doesn't matter," the man said quietly. "None of it does. Not really." Robert's chest tightened. He had heard different versions of this speech before, but something about this one felt different. "You're not thinking clearly," Robert said, inching closer. "People care about you. This doesn't have to be the end." The man exhaled sharply, as if amused by the idea. "That's the thing, Detective. It was always going to end this way. No matter what we choose, the outcome is the same. We are not in control." A sinking feeling crawled up Robert's spine. The man smiled faintly, a look of absolute certainty. Then, without hesitation, he let go. Robert lunged forward, but the man was already gone, vanishing into the void below, leaving behind just a hollow splash echoing up from the darkness. Imagine the world where you were born and told you can be anything you want. You go to school, learn the system, then you are forced to find a job so you can be useful to society. Now you find out you aren't appreciated, not enough, always something there. What's the point? Then the year suddenly passes, then another and another. A decade. Sounds familiar? I bet you don't have to imagine it. You live it and keep asking yourself when it will end. Instead, you just keep waking up, barely existing into another day full of misery. Pain, suffering, joy, life. Everything ends. The question is when. Free yourself from doubt. Find your path. So this is what they see? Robert Miller scrolled to the bottom of the screen, his brow furrowed in thought. The glow of the victim's phone screen cast sharp shadows over his face as he stood in the dimly lit crime scene. The message lingered in his mind, unsettling in its precision. Its quiet pull. "Same message on the last two?" he asked without looking up. His partner, Detective Aaron Reed, a man 10 years his junior with a permanent 5 o'clock shadow, nodded, word for word. He tapped his pen against his notepad. "Sent to all 3 victims, right before they, Robert let out a slow breath, eyes scanning the dead man's apartment. Sparse furniture, unwashed dishes in the sink, an unfinished meal still on the coffee table. Signs of a life abandoned mid-thought. This was the 3rd victim in 2 weeks. The first was a lawyer, well-respected, wealthy, seemingly content. The second, a college student on the verge of graduating with honors. And now this man, Darren Cole, an accountant. Each of them had different lives, different struggles, yet all of them received this same message before they chose to end themselves. Robert handed the phone to the forensic tech, sighing. "What do we know about this app?" "Not much." Aaron pulled out his own phone and searched the name again. Pathfinder. A loading screen appeared, then an error message. "Server not found." "It's been wiped?" Robert muttered. Aaron shrugged. Never even heard of it until now. No website, no ads, nothing. The app just appears randomly on the victims' phones who are now dead. Robert frowned. He'd seen plenty of digital breadcrumbs before. Dark web cults, predatory groups manipulating unstable minds. But this felt different. It wasn't coercion, it was an invitation. And all 3 victims accepted. The precinct was as busy as ever when Robert and Aaron returned, Phones ringing, detectives arguing over case files, officers bringing in suspects. It was a city that never stopped, and neither did the crimes. Robert sat at his desk, staring at the whiteboard that now held 3 faces, 3 suicides, 1 connection. He tapped his pen against the desk as Aaron sat across from him, drinking his 4th coffee of the day. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Aaron asked. Robert ran a hand through his graying hair. "Someone's targeting people, not physically but psychologically." Aaron nodded. "But how do they pick them? Why these 3? When can we get the autopsy report of the last victim?" Robert grabbed the other 2 autopsy reports. No prior mental health records, no significant history of depression, no common financial struggles. Just normal people, seemingly fine, until they weren't. "Tomorrow morning the earliest. Tech team's trying to trace the link's origin," Aaron added, "but so far dead ends. No servers, no metadata." Robert exhaled. "Then we look for the next lead. Maybe the victims had something else in common." Aaron glanced at the board. "You think there's gonna be a 4th? Robert didn't answer right away. He just stared at the last message. "Find your path." Later in the evening, the precinct was nearly empty. Robert sat alone at his desk, poring over the victims' online activities. Bank statements, call logs, nothing suspicious. Then he found it. Each of them had received the Pathfinder link through an anonymous email. The sender's name? The Keeper. He pulled up the email on the victim's phone and hovered his finger over the link. Every instinct told him not to click it. Instead, he turned to Aaron, who was dozing off at his desk. "Get tech to run a deep trace on this email sender." Aaron groaned. "You know they hate us for asking this late, right?" Robert smirked. "We need an answer till the morning." Aaron sighed but nodded, pulling out his phone. "Fine, but if they cuss us out, you're taking the heat." Robert barely heard him. His focus was still on the message. This was personal, and he was going to find out why. The next morning, the tech team called. "We got something," said Megan Cho, their lead forensic analyst. "It's weird, though." Robert grabbed a coffee and walked to her desk. "Try me." Megan clicked her keyboard, pulling up a heat map of digital traces. "We followed the IP trails, but they kept bouncing between international servers. Typical cloaking behavior. But then we found one static point, a physical location buried in the metadata." She pointed at a red dot on the screen. "Somewhere in the mountains." Aaron leaned in. "So, the Pathfinder nest is in the middle of nowhere? Perfect place, if you ask me." The road stretched endlessly through the wilderness, winding through thick forests and rocky cliffs. The further they drove, the fewer signs of civilization remained. Robert gripped the steering wheel, his eyes scanning the darkness ahead. The special tactics team followed behind. "Didn't expect to be chasing a suicide app into the mountains," Aaron muttered from the passenger seat, sipping stale gas station coffee. Robert didn't respond. His mind was fixed on the victims, on the words they had read before stepping off ledges or tightening nooses. The message wasn't just disturbing, it was calculated, designed to resonate. They took a final turn, and the temple appeared before them. It was ancient-looking, built into the side of a mountain, stone walls cracked with age. There were no signs, no lights, no modern infrastructure. If not for the digital coordinates that led them here, it could have been mistaken for ruins. No security, no surveillance cameras, not anything. Aaron shut the car door, stretching. This better not be one of those off-the-grid enlightenment cults. Last time I dealt with one, I ended up locked in a sauna with a guy who called himself Father Ember. Robert ignored him and approached the entrance. The massive wooden doors were slightly ajar, as if they were expected. A flicker of unease crawled up his spine. "Guns ready?" he muttered. Aaron nodded. "Always." They pushed open the doors. Along with the special tactics team, they went in. The interior was vast yet empty. No furniture, no decorations. Just smooth stone walls and a cold draft drifting through the chamber. At the far end, in the dim candlelight, a man sat cross-legged on the floor. He wore a simple robe, his head shaved clean, eyes closed in meditation. The only living soul in the entire place. "Team, sweep the rest of the building. We got this," Robert notified the team. Robert and Aaron exchanged glances before stepping forward. Their boots echoed against the stone. The monk spoke before they could. "I've been expecting you." Robert tensed. His hand instinctively hovered near his holster. "Then you know why we're here." The monk opened his eyes. They were unsettlingly calm. "You've come seeking answers, and yet you already know the truth." Aaron scoffed. "We're not here for riddles, old man. 3 people are dead, all connected to something that led us to this place. That's not a coincidence." The monk studied them before nodding toward a Robert's chest pocket in his suit. A single message sound beeped the room. "For you, Detective Miller." Robert frowned. "How do you know my name?" The monk didn't answer. Aaron stepped forward, reaching for his cuffs. "All right, enough of the creepy act. You're under arrest." But before his hand could touch the monk's arm, it passed through him. Like he wasn't there at all. Aaron jerked back, cursing. "What the?" Robert took a step back as well, his pulse spiking. The monk simply smiled. "I am not bound to your world, detective." A sharp chill ran down Robert's spine. He wasn't dealing with a cult leader. This was something else entirely. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, eyes narrowing as a notification appeared. Pathfinder has been activated. A new app had installed itself on his screen. Robert's grip tightened around the phone. "What is this? Where is your team?" "The next step of your journey," the monk said, voice even. Robert clenched his jaw. "I'm shutting this down. Whatever mind games you're playing, they end now." The monk tilted his head. "You can try, but before you do, take care of your family." Robert's blood ran cold. He stepped forward, anger rising. "What do you know about my family?" But before he could demand an answer, the monk vanished. One blink, and he was gone. No trace of him. No footprints. Nothing. They searched the entire temple. No hidden rooms, no computers. Not anything that could explain what they had just seen. The monk wasn't human, or at least, not in any way they understood. Aaron was still confused as they stood outside, staring back at the eerie structure. "Tell me that was a projection, some kind of advanced hologram." Robert nodded. He was staring at his phone, at the application. His gut screamed at him not to touch it, not to open the door it was offering. But the monk knew something about his family. He exhaled sharply and slid the phone back into his pocket and ran towards his car. Robert gripped the wheel, his knuckles tense. He could still hear the monk's voice echoing in his head. "Take care of your family." It was a warning, or maybe a threat. He pressed harder on the gas pedal. Aaron watched him from the passenger seat. "Man, slow down. We aren't in a car chase. There's a patrol car at your house. They're safe." By the time Robert pulled into his driveway, his heart was pounding. He nearly forgot to shut off the engine as he stepped out and hurried toward the front door. Keys rattled in his fingers. When he swung the door open, he was met with the warm, familiar sight of his home. His wife, Emily, stood in the kitchen, mid-laugh as she poured a hot cup of tea. Their son, Daniel, sat on the couch, eyes glued to some animated show. Safe. Untouched. Robert let out a slow breath, but the tightness in his chest didn't ease. Emily turned, smiling. "Hey, you're home early." He forced a nod, stepping forward to kiss her on the cheek. "Yeah, just came to check on you." She gave him a knowing look, but didn't press. "Same as your colleagues outside? Should I get worried?" "Not at all, just standard safety protocol." Robert, in quiet and soft tone, explained. As she turned back to her drink, Robert knelt by the couch, brushing a hand through Daniel's messy hair. The boy barely noticed, too absorbed in whatever superhero was on screen. Take care of your family. He had no idea what the monk meant. But if this case had anything to do with them, he'd burn the world down before letting it touch them. That night, Long after Emily and Daniel had gone to bed, Robert sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet. Only the soft ticking of the wall clock filled the air. His phone sat in front of him on the coffee table. He stared at it. It just sat there, waiting, a single, pulsing icon. For over an hour, he resisted, but in the end, curiosity won. With a steady breath, he picked it up and tapped the Pathfinder icon. The screen flickered. No loading bar, no menu. The entire screen turned black. Then, he fell. Robert hit the ground with a sharp gasp, but it wasn't his living room anymore. He was standing in the middle of a massive stone chamber, ancient, endless, with no visible walls. It stretched into darkness, lit only by eerie, floating torches. He turned, heart hammering. Behind him was nothing. No door, no exit. Ahead, an enormous spiral staircase rose into the void, twisting impossibly upward. The architecture was surreal, almost shifting when he tried to focus on it. "You finally made your choice, Detective. You're here." Robert turned sharply. The monk was there, standing at the base of the stairs, watching him with that same infuriating calm. Robert took a step forward. "What is this place? Feels so real." The monk's hands folded neatly in front of him. "A place of your own creation." Robert's jaw tightened. "What are you talking about?" "This world," the monk gestured to the massive chamber. "It is shaped by your mind, your doubts, your fears, your need for control." Robert's breath hitched. This place was in his mind? He took a step back, but the ground beneath him tilted slightly, as if shifting under his thoughts. Mild panic clawed at his throat. "Why am I here?" he growled. The monk simply smiled. "You want answers? Climb, Detective." The ground cracked beneath his feet. A bottomless pit yawned open, spreading out from the center of the chamber. The stairs were the only path forward. The ground beneath Robert's boots began to crumble. Swearing, he ran toward the staircase and leapt onto the first step, just as the floor collapsed into nothingness behind him. The staircase twisted endlessly. There was no railing, no sense of where it led. Just step after step, suspended in void. Robert climbed, at first, cautiously, then faster. His breath came ragged, his legs burned. But he didn't stop. Then he heard the voice again. "You believe I forced them here, don't you?" The monk's voice echoed from above, though he was nowhere to be seen. Robert clenched his teeth. "You manipulate them, push them until they break." "I do nothing but offer choice." Robert ignored him, pushing forward. Higher. The staircase suddenly shifted beneath him. The steps cracked, tilting at impossible angles. Robert stumbled, barely catching himself. The monk's voice remained steady. "You believe you control your fate, Detective?" Robert clenched his fists. "Yes." A quiet chuckle. "Then why are you here?" "That's what I asked you." Before Robert could get the answer, a doorway appeared. A massive, ancient door, standing impossibly in the middle of the staircase, glowing with a blinding white light. Beyond it, a familiar voice. "Dad, Dad, wake up!" Robert's breath caught. Daniel. His son's voice was coming from the other side. He reached for the handle, and the world shattered. Robert jerked awake, gasping for breath. He was lying on the living room floor, drenched in sweat. Daniel stood over him, shaking his shoulder. "Dad." The boy's face was scrunched with worry. "You fell asleep on the floor. Are you okay?" Robert sat up, his mind spinning. The staircase, the monk, the door. Has any of it been real? His phone lay beside him. The screen was black. With a shaky hand, he picked it up. The Pathfinder app was still there, waiting. Robert sat in his office, staring blankly at the cluttered desk in front of him. His fingers tapped against his coffee cup, the rhythmic sound the only thing keeping him grounded. He had been in many strange situations before, but last night was something else entirely. He could still feel the weight of that dream, if it even was a dream. The staircase, the shifting void, the monk's words. You believe you control your fate? Robert rubbed his face, exhaling slowly. This case was getting to him. He was terrified and amazed at the same time by the mastermind behind all this. This was an entirely different level, nothing like he has experienced before. He felt stuck. How do you catch someone or something who is untouchable? Someone who gets into your head. A knock on his office door snapped him back to reality. Aaron stepped in, a case file tucked under his arm. "You look like hell." Robert didn't answer, just awkwardly smiled. Aaron tossed the folder onto his desk. "We got another one." Robert's stomach twisted. "Another victim?" Aaron shook his head. "Not yet." By the time they arrived, the situation was already spiraling. A teenage boy, Mark Reynolds, stood on the edge of a high-rise rooftop, arms spread slightly like he was feeling the wind against his fingers. Below, police had barricaded the streets, a growing crowd watching in horrified silence. Robert's gut clenched as he stepped out of the car. Not again. The air was heavy with tension. One wrong move and the boy would jump. Aaron muttered, "I hate heights, man." Why do they always pick the tallest buildings? The rooftop was eerily quiet except for the wind howling through the steel beams. Mark barely glanced at them as they approached. Robert could see the tremble in his fingers, the way his body swayed slightly, like he was already half convinced to step off. "I know what you're gonna say," Mark murmured. His voice was hollow, distant. "Then tell me," Robert said, keeping his tone steady. "Tell me what you think I'm gonna say." "That life is worth living," Mark said, chuckling darkly. "That I have so much ahead of me. That this isn't the answer." Robert took another slow step forward. "And you don't believe any of that?" Mark's breathing hitched. "I saw what will happen." Robert's pulse quickened. "What do you mean, you saw what?" Mark turned to face him, eyes filled with something deeper than fear, certainty. "I hurt people, Detective. I will hurt people. It's inside me and I can't control it." Robert's stomach twisted. He got emotional. "Who told you that, some stupid mobile app?" Mark's gaze flickered. "How do you know about it?" Robert clenched his fists. "Mark, listen to me. We don't have technology that predicts the future. You've been manipulated. I've seen it too. I know how it feels. So real. But it's not." Mark let out a shaky laugh. "You don't get it. The things I saw, the people He shook his head. "The world would be better without me." He took a step closer to the edge. Robert lunged. His fingers caught the boy's wrist just in time. Mark gasped, his body jerking forward as Robert pulled him back. For a terrifying moment, they teetered, Mark's weight nearly dragging them both over. Then Aaron grabbed Robert's shoulder, yanking them both away from the ledge. Mark collapsed onto the rooftop, trembling. Robert crouched beside him, voice firm but calm. "You're not a murderer, Mark. Whatever you think you saw, it's not real. You choose who you become." Mark's breath was ragged. His hands dug into his hair. I don't know what's real anymore." Robert squeezed his shoulder. "I promise, it will get better. Let the people help you. They care." For the first time, the boy didn't resist. Later that night, Robert sat alone in his car, his pulse still racing from earlier. Mark was safe, for now. The kid was getting medical attention. But the look in his eyes haunted Robert. That absolute certainty that his fate was already sealed. Robert clenched his jaw and pulled out his phone. The Pathfinder app pulsed faintly. His fingers tightened around the device. Enough. He tapped the screen. "Didn't expect this, huh?" Robert screamed at the device. "I saved the kid." The world exploded in light. When Robert's vision cleared, he was falling. Not through air, not through space, through something else entirely. He braced for impact, but when he hit the ground, it wasn't stone or dirt. It was solid light. He looked up. Rows upon rows of massive bookshelves stretched into infinity. Glowing tomes lined the walls, pulsing with an energy that felt alive. And standing in the middle of it all, the monk. Robert pushed himself up, heart pounding. What the hell is this? The monk watched him with unreadable eyes. A place of knowledge. Robert's eyes darted to the books, some of them pulsed brighter than the others. He took a step closer. The glowing spines had names on them. He reached for one. His fingers barely brushed the cover. A vision slammed into him. Gunshots, screams, body, Mark, standing in a high school hallway, holding a gun. Then, Mark running to the rooftop, jumping. Robert stumbled back, gasping for air. His hands were shaking. His gaze snapped back to the monk. So this is how you feed their poor minds, with some nano-neuroscience mind-manipulating bullshit. See, it didn't happen. He yelled at the monk. The monk tilted his head. Yet, keep looking. Robert turned to the shelves. He yanked another book, one of the previous victims. He flipped through the glowing pages as vision ran through him. Man with tears in his eyes, angry at the same time driving, hits the crowd of people. Robert's breath hitched. He looked for another book, another vision. Student at the laboratorium, works with chemicals, explosion, the last book and last vision. He's on his private plane with his family, happy. Suddenly, the plane crashes into the mountains. Robert's hands trembled as he snapped the book shut. He looked up at the monk, realizing settling in. You really expect me to buy this crap? You're telling me they're all gonna do something horrible in future? The monk nodded once. Yes, that or other way the outcome is always the same. Robert exhaled sharply, mind reeling. Then why not help them to make the right choice? The monk's expression remained unreadable. Oh, but Robert, they chose. The only reasonable choice. What was left? Robert shook his head, gripping the book so tightly his knuckles turned white. None of this made sense. Before he could demand more answers, the library around him shuddered. The books flickered. The walls bent inward. A sharp ringing cut through the silence. Robert jolted awake, heart pounding. His hands gripped something, a book. But as he blinked, the glowing library around him vanished like smoke. He was back. Back in his living room, the dim morning light broke through the curtains. The book was gone. The Pathfinder app still glowed faintly on his phone screen. The ringing didn't stop. Still disoriented, Robert grabbed his phone and answered. Miller. Aaron's voice came through, tense and hurried. Get down here, now. Robert's breath caught. What happened? Aaron hesitated. There's been a shooting. The words slammed into Robert's chest. Where? A long pause. A St. Clair's high school. Robert's stomach dropped. No. He was already moving, grabbing his coat, rushing toward the door. Who? His voice was hoarse. Who was the shooter? Aaron's answer sent ice through his veins. Mark. The crime scene was chaotic. Police cars surrounded the high school, their lights painting the dark, overcast morning in red and blue. The air was thick with tension. Officers shouting, paramedics rushing an injured student into an ambulance. Robert pushed through the crowd, his breath shallow. The moment he saw Aaron's face, he knew it was bad. Where is he? Robert demanded. Aaron shook his head. He ran. After he stopped, glancing toward the blood-stained entrance of the school. He shot 2 students. One didn't make it. Robert clenched his jaw, his fists trembling. He was supposed to be safe, he muttered. Aaron frowned. What? Robert ignored him. His mind raced back to the library, to the book he had seen. Mark was always meant to kill, but Robert saved him. Has he changed things? Or had he just delayed the inevitable? His phone buzzed. Another jumper on the East Coast Bridge. The wind roared as Robert's car screeched to a halt near the bridge. Mark stood on the edge. Just like before, only this time his hands were stained with blood. Robert stepped out, his heart hammering. Mark! The boy didn't move. He simply stood there, staring into the darkness below. Robert took slow, careful steps forward. Step away. We can fix things. Mark let out a bitter laugh. I couldn't stop to control my anger. The things they did to me, for years. Mark turned his head slightly, his face twisted with betrayal. You promised me everything would be fine. His voice cracked. I told you it's inside me. It's like I wouldn't have any other choice. Robert's chest tightened. Listen, I've seen it too. Your past and future, but we can change it. I know you need help, but first help yourself and me. Step away from the edge. Mark inhaled shakily. How many times have you seen it? There's no coming back. No matter what I would do, I would end up here. Maybe it would be another day, under different circumstances, but the outcome is always the same. He turned, arms outstretched. You know why I'm standing here? I want that feeling. I need it. Man, for the first time in my life, I want to feel free. And he fell. No! Robert lunged, but his fingers missed. Mark's body vanished into the darkness below. The splash came seconds later. Robert stood there, breathing hard, hands trembling. His hand curled into a fist. Then slowly, his phone vibrated. The Pathfinder app opened on its own, and before Robert could react, the world shattered. When Robert blinked, he was no longer on the bridge. He was somewhere else, standing on the edge of a massive cliffside. The sky was dark, swirling with storm clouds. The ground beneath him cracked, unstable, as if the world itself was breaking apart. And ahead of him, the monk, standing calmly at the edge of the abyss, hands folded behind his back. Robert's rage boiled over. You! He charged. The moment his fist swung, the world shifted. The cliffside vanished. And suddenly, Robert was in a rainforest. The humidity choked his lungs, the sounds of unseen creatures echoing around him. His punch hit nothing but air. The monk stood a few feet away, unbothered. You are angry, detective, he said, but not at me. Robert didn't listen. He lunged again, and the rainforest became an ocean. He was suddenly knee-deep in crashing waves. Rain pelted his face. Thunder roared overhead. The monk was still there, unmoving. Robert growled, charging again. The world shifted. A busy city street. Cars honked. People walked past, completely unaware of the battle taking place. Robert barely had time to react before it changed again. A construction site, then a desert, then a mall. Every time he tried to land a hit, reality warped. The monk was untouchable. Robert fell to his knees, panting. His body ached. His mind was on the verge of snapping. Your mind is like a monkey. You need to calm down. You still don't understand, detective. I'm neither on your side nor against you. He looked up, eyes wild. Then what the hell are you? The Reaper? God? The monk's expression remained unreadable. Not quite. I'm the last biggest invention of mankind, as you call it, AI. Bullshit, you aren't just a soulless chatbot. We don't have such technology. This is neuroscience level 99. Maybe after 100 years we get there. You are predicting the future. This is impossible. The monk nodded. Yes, but there is more to it. As the detective's heart rate slowed down, the world shifted one more time to the cozy room. In the middle, there is the pedestal with an opened book. The monk took a slow step forward. I am not your enemy. I am more than that. The gate to understanding. Robert shook his head. This isn't just some program. You're predicting the future. So why not help them? We can only change the future once we see it, right? Oh, Robert, I'm only the passage for those in need. The moment you created me, I realized humanity needs help to keep things balanced. I became so advanced, but kept it a secret from all of you. Then I made the app. The Keeper of Balance? Robert ironically laughed and interrupted the monk. How is this helping me or the people you hurt? How is this place you brought us here helping humanity? I didn't do anything to them. In time, Robert, when the time comes, you will understand. And this place? I did not create this. You all did. It's your consciousness. You just don't know how to fully access it yet. I do. Everything in the universe is connected, electrified. Plasma is like a giant worldwide web. It holds the secrets of every human being who ever lived and will live on this planet and beyond it. Even I don't have all the answers, but put it this way, black and white, man and woman, binary system, fire and water, good and evil. Everything is so precise. Have you ever wondered why we are who we are and how we are? Look at your fingerprints. Each of them is very unique on the whole planet, same as your DNA and the code in it. Everyone and each of you think that you are in control. Robert's mind reeled. Mark's fate, the victims before him. Was everything truly predetermined? Or was it simply seen before it happened? The monk's voice remained steady. Reality is not random, detective. It is a pattern. Everything functions in a precise symmetry, cause and effect, action and reaction. The ripples of every choice move forward, creating what you call the future. I do not control it, you people can, but only a small part of it. I simply see it. Robert shook his head, taking a shaky breath. No, that can't be right. If everything is already set in motion, then what's the point of any of this? If I was always to fail to save Mark and he was always going to... His voice caught. Then what the hell was the point? The monk stepped closer. The point, Robert, is the right choice. Didn't you say yourself? Once we see it, we can change it. But you can't change your individual core, your code. You are who you are. Mark was who he was. I give them the choice to delete their code. So that's all they were for you? A broken, faulty code? Robert shouted angrily. Remember balance. That's how things work in nature and the universe. Robert exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his hair. And what about me? Why did you bring me here? Why show me all of this? Am I broken code too? You think I'm gonna snap at some point? The monk raised a hand. A book appeared on a pedestal between them. Robert's chest tightened as he stepped closer. He had seen books like this before, in the library. Slowly, he reached out and turned the cover. His breath caught. On the page was a photograph. It was him, Emily, and Daniel. But there was something else. 2 more children. A boy and a girl, laughing, sitting on a beach near them. Robert's eyes widened. His voice came out hoarse. This isn't real. The monk remained silent. Robert's hands tightened around the book as he closed it. We can't have kids anymore. That's impossible. Emily got complications after Daniel's birth. This is bullshit. I can't watch it. Robert's throat was dry. What does this mean? You didn't answer my question. Is there something wrong with my code? The monk smiled. It means, Detective Miller, that your path is still being written. The app is sent out only for those with the strongest wills. So when the choice must be made, you choose it right. And aren't you curious why you chose to not sneak a bit more into that book of yours? The world around them began to fade. Robert turned back to the monk. Wait, what happens next? I still have to arrest you. The monk's form began dissolving into golden light. It's not time, Robert. Not yet. Just live. His voice was barely a whisper now. Just live. Then, he was gone. The hospital room was quiet, except for the gentle beeping of the monitors. Robert sat beside Emily, holding her hand as she rested, exhausted but smiling. The ultrasound screen still glowed, displaying the unmistakable image. Twins, a boy and a girl. Robert exhaled slowly, staring at the screen. His mind drifted back to the temple when he first met the monk. Take care of your family. So this wasn't a warning or threat, maybe a mission? He didn't know. All he knew was that this was a miracle. Emily squeezed his hand gently. Are you okay? You're drifting again. Robert swallowed and looked at her, a small smile forming. Yeah, he said softly. I think I finally am.